members of the board, for the record, Doug Lewis, I want to start off tonight to say that it's my hope that we can unite and come together as a community around the objective of providing the very best and age-appropriate educational rigor that will bless and benefit all of our children. So I hope that's an objective that I think we can all unite on. It's an issue that doesn't lend itself to sides. It's an issue that can unite the community and the board, but it will not happen unless we have an open, honest discussion. Specifically, I'm here tonight to talk about certain obscene and pornographic content in our libraries. Let me start by asking, can we agree as a board in a community that the opportunity cost of fostering filth in our schools is rigorous educational materials? Can we unite on that principle? I'm not going to speak in platitudes tonight. Let me start by saying that if at any point you determine that what I am going to share is inappropriate for the decorum of this adult meeting, I will respectfully remind you that it's also inappropriate for my sons and my daughter and for our public school children. It's an issue of decency. Can we all stipulate to the fact that the books in school media and our school media centers are books that members of the district chose to purchase at taxpayer expense and to provide to our children? These are choices. Second, remember also that when it was publicly brought to the attention of the district, the superintendent's spokesperson said the following about disclosed pornographic obscene books in our media centers. On June 5th of 2015, the superintendent's spokesperson said the following, quote, "What is offensive to you may not be offensive to me." And in a platitude sense, I don't disagree with that concept. But I'm not here today to talk about platitudes. We're talking about specific books that were disclosed to the district. We are now many days beyond the district's notice of the problem. We are also well beyond the December 2014 board meeting where specific concerns were raised by a parent about obscene books that can still be found in our school libraries 6 months later. A member of the Supreme Court said about pornography, it's difficult to define, but I know it when I see it. To this end, any parents watching at home, please remove your young children from watching this on television. I'm going to read to you a portion of a book that's in the library, with your permission.
You don't have my permission. No. I'm sorry.
Mr. Fishbane, can you give some direction here?
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will maintain decorum and civility here. Mr. Fishbane.
All right. Our policy and the limits of First Amendment indicate that if it's going to be obscene, and we have it there, that's not appropriate. If Mr. Lewis would care, in his own words, just to summarize some of that, that's acceptable. But reading obscene material knowingly is in violation of what our 0165 is about.
Again, we will maintain decorum in this room and civility. Sir, you have your answer.
Mr.
Please
Fishbane, is
move
it your
forward.
determination that
Mr.
material is obscene?
I'm not going to get into a legal discussion. Please determine.
Okay, let me read the material then, and you can make the determination. Please, with all due respect, that's my formal objection in the record.
I hear you, but how much time have this taken up? Because I want to ensure that he gets his appropriate time if we've interrupted him. So, if Mr. Duquette, do you know?
There's currently 9 seconds.
Okay, so whatever additional time is accorded to you by that interruption.
Thank you for that. My question to you, Mr. Fishbane, is the material I'm going to read, is it obscene, yes or no, under your rules?
Please move forward, sir.
That was my question.
Mr. Lewis, I have no idea what you're going to say. So if
I'm going to read from page 80. I'm going to read from page 80 of a book called Dreaming in Cuban.
Okay, then if that, you can read from that text, if that's a text.
If at any point it's obscene, please stop me.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Hugo and Felicia stripped in their room, dissolving easily into one another, and made love against the whitewashed walls. Hugo bit Felicia's breast and left purplish bands of bruises on her upper thighs. He knelt before her in the tub and massaged the black Spanish soap between her legs. He entered into her repeatedly from behind. Felicia learned what pleased him. She tried.
I have to ask you to stop, sir.
Well, let's just understand this, that you're reading literature. I understand that. and there's a place for that. But if your purpose is to say, I'm going to bring before you something obscene, then you are injecting something different. If
My
you're telling
purpose
us
to
you're
ask you,
reading-
is it obscene?
Are
Is
you
it obscene?
going to, let me finish my
Sure,
comment?
sure,
That would
sure.
be great. So if you're telling us that this is a literary text that is used in our schools, and you want to read a page from it, then I don't think, Madam Chair, that we ought to interfere. Let him read that section, and we can move on.
The time is up.
I have, I have interrupted Mr. Lewis in engaging this conversation, and we have made a commitment to honor time.
Okay.
And regardless of differences or whatever, I want that to be honored, because that's what we stand for. So I would ask that Mr. Lewis be given an additional 30 seconds so that he does not have anything that has, been taken away from him.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Fishbane.
Fishbane.
Please move forward, sir.
He entered her repeatedly from behind. Felicia learned what pleased him. She tied his arms above his head with her underclothing and slapped him sharply when he asked, "You are my bitch." I won't use that word. Hugo said, groaning. In the morning he left, he promised her a return this summer. The process is broken, and I ask that this district take action to prevent these types of non-rigorous materials, and that's the key term. This is not rigor. I don't send my daughter and my son to school to read this. Can we all accept and agree that the rights of parents are limited or even eliminated when inappropriate books are put into the media centers where parents have no view of what's going on? It is disingenuous to use book banning allegations to promote
Your time is
obscene,
up, sir.
pornographic, and non-rigorous materials in our schools. In a nutshell, for me, this creates an issue of judgment and trust, and I ask that that trust and judgment be restored. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
2 weeks ago, the Collier County Public School Administration issued an apology for posting a summer reading recommendation list that contained basically about 60 soft to hardcore porn books from the Goodreads.com site for middle schoolers. 60. They claimed the site had changed since it was vetted a month before, but I wasn't convinced it was a mistake because I have seen the required reading lists for high school, and I'm not talking about Mark Twain or To Kill a Mockingbird. Just last year, the required reading for Honors English 3 was Clockwork Orange. Did you know Clockwork Orange begins with a 15-year-old high school boy on drugs enticing two 10-year-old girls into an orgy and then beats them up? So I decided to check the media centers in our schools and see what's available there. I found a book called The Bluest Eye, which is about incest between a father and a daughter. This became the subject of a news story last week by Sophie Nielsen-Colding of NBC2, and she read this portion to Mr. Trichetta of CCPS. Quote, "He must rest his weight on his elbows when they make love to avoid hurting her breasts." And Mr. Trichetta's answer to that was, "What is offensive to you may not be offensive to me." Really, Mr. Trichetta, you're not offended by a father raping his young daughter? Okay. Well, how about the book Beloved, where the black members of a chain gang are forced by the white guards to perform a sexual act on the guards, which is supposed to suffice as their breakfast. Also, acts of bestiality are mentioned 4 times in that book, and you can get that book at all our high schools and even Corkscrew Middle School. Now, I'm not going to waste time going through a huge list of inappropriate R-rated books available to minor children of this county. They're there, and there are plenty of them. But it brings to mind a parent's worst fear, that while I'm doing everything in my power to raise good kids in a loving and wholesome environment, that unbeknownst to me, there may be a guy in a black car on a street corner beckoning my child to come here. I have something to show you, enticing my child with books and pictures. And I have no idea my child is being molested. I fear that guy in the black car may be those responsible in this district for putting those books on the shelves for children, putting our child in harm's way unbeknownst to us. Did you know that when the most notorious rapist serial killer, Ted Bundy, was interviewed in prison and asked why he did what he did, he answered, "It all started with porn." A school should be a safe place for children. And we've learned this week the Collier County School District may not be trustworthy. In fact, Mr. Trichetta, peddling porn to minors is against obscenity laws in Florida. When parents take great effort to protect their kids and the district minimizes or ignores it, then we feel our kids' minds and souls are not safe in Collier County Public Schools. Now, here's a thought. We rate movies and video games to protect children from age-inappropriate themes. Why not books? Now, these themes may be okay to atheists, spinsters, young singles, and those with alternative lifestyles, but it's not to parents. It's not okay with us. Don't forget, these are our children. It's too bad we feel like we have to protect them from you. By the
Time
way,
is
the
up, ma'am.
Pope warns parents, stop relying on experts to educate your children. It's time that mothers and fathers return from their exile. They've exiled themselves from
Ma'am,
the
your time is
education of
up.
their children. Don't delegate it to so-called experts.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Ivana Zecki, Steve Bracci, and John Thomas.
If you'll come forward, gentlemen.
Hello, Ivana Zecki, mother of 3 school-age kids in Collier County. Last spring, 6 weeks prior to the end of the school year, I was forced to pull my daughter out of Pine Ridge Middle School. There were multiple issues throughout the school year that contributed to this, but the final straw was my 13-year-old being forced to watch movies in class that depicted the rape of slaves, their being impregnated with mulatto babies, and hearing about religious groups where postmenopausal women will teach young boys how to have sex. This is in U.S. history class. We had to go to great time, expense, and trouble to get her set up homeschooling while we waited to hear what was going to be done about this. We are still waiting, and while we've been waiting, we continue to hear about more inappropriate content in the classrooms and books on the bookshelves in our middle school and high schools, some of which I've already talked to the Pine Ridge librarian about prior to removing my daughter. Some that I've just recently learned about are The Bluest Eye, Beloved, Dreaming in Cuban, which you heard excerpts of. And the reason we're just hearing a lot about these 3 books is not because it's just 3 books, it's just because these are very well-known books. There are thousands of books available to our children that parents do not have time to go through individually and read, in addition to raising children and working. We send our children to school to learn how to do math, science, reading, writing. Let's focus on getting that right. There is not a shortage of good literature that we have to include these types of books in our children's libraries. And if there are some children who thirst for sexual content, I don't think it's our school's responsibility to quench that thirst. This is becoming a systemic problem and undermining the ability of parents to trust this district with our children. Thank you.